Kumi, if you can make the screen a little bigger so that we can, or the text. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I hope your day is starting bright already. I think two things before we delve into these. Apologies on Thursday. I did mention that I was going to try and set up a lab for us to onboard Windows VM. But unfortunately, I didn't have time. In fact, I woke up like 15 minutes ago. So I mean, since that yesterday was very busy for me, and also I think because I also slept very late, I think I woke up very late this morning as well, so I didn't have time to look into that. Hopefully, if time will permit on Thursday, I'll do that. If time does not permit, I'll rely that all of you will probably do self-study for that area. I think the instructions are very clear on that, and if anyone have any question, you can relay it back to me and then we can look at it together if I sort of have the time, but I'll try as much as possible to create time if someone is looking into it and running into issues and need my view, so I'll make out time for that. I think that's the first thing I'm going to say. The second thing, we are approaching the end of this course. Hopefully, we complete everything by Thursday. And with that, two things I also like to say. Most time, even the normal hand, I recall I had someone a while back while I was growing up that had an accident, and the person's hand was plastered for some months. And what was shocking, the person that had the accident didn't have the accident as a child. She had it as an adult, perhaps more than maybe in her late 40s at the time she had an accident, and just because she could not use the hand for maybe some months, when the POP was removed, that hand had to be retrained for her to be able to use it to grab and for her to be able to use it to do a normal thing she used to use the hand for. That was very, very shocking to me because using of your hand and moving of your limb shouldn't be something that easily should be a challenge even after an accident. It should just be a natural thing. But I actually just understand from that experience that even the natural order, that are not frequently exercised can easily be forgotten. So what am I trying to say? At the end of this program, it will be the whole exercise will be useless if we don't keep at it. I sort of believe that all of us on this call have interest in cybersecurity, and all of us have interest in SOC. So continuous learning is the only way we can own our skill. If we just leave it as is and move on, maybe to some other things or got distracted, it may not be very useful to us again after some time. So I'll just like to put that there. And the second thing, for people who are interested in writing the SC-200 exam, I did mention that um I think someone asked me for if there's like a practice exam and all of those things. I don't have practice exam, so to say, that I can really say that with all confidence. You can take this and all of the answers should be correct. I always believe in studying, looking at the course content in details and trying to cover the content area. And my approach to study is usually I pick a content area. I mean, one of the topic area, I study it. When I feel like, okay, I believe I've done justice to this, I can go into the questions. I'll go and look for live questions or maybe past questions, and then I'll try to solve all of the questions in the content area. I mean, topic area that I've just read. And most time, when I achieve some level of confidence, and I've done that for all of the topic area, then I know it's the right time for me to write the exam. And one thing I'll also say, SC-200 is a combination of knowledge and hands-on. I think for some of you that have seen the I mean practice exam that I drop on the chat, you already noticed that if you've not seen any questions around SC-200 before. So I think you can use that to prepare. You can use that for test, but I also say that try as much as possible to validate the answer, because most people said something is the answer doesn't necessarily make it the answer. I think I've done some exam in the past that I have to I mean that I just read the question, I saw the answer, and I knew instantly that those answers are actually wrong. So validate answers. If you have questions, you can type it on the Google and then you should be able to see a meaningful answer. So I just want to um also put that there. So that said, today we have a lot to cover. I will trust that we'll be able to move at speed, and I'll just spotlight the critical things, and I'll trust that you also study. Like I always encourage. I mean, just hearing it is not enough. When you study it yourself and you see it, I mean, you are reinforcing it, and that has a way of helping. So today we have 8 modules to cover, and it's on creating detection and performing investigation using Microsoft Sentinel. Just as a recap, we said Sentinel is a SIEM solution, and it can also be used as a SOAR if integrated with what's it called? If you make use of Azure Logic App with it, then you can use it as a SOA. You can also use it for automating and orchestrating actions or maybe run books that you have defined. So, but before that, you must set up Sentinel, and Sentinel does not work alone. You must have a log analytics in place that collects all of the log, and then Sentinel can always integrate with that log analytics to give you the functionality of a SIEM and so that you need. And we also said that Sentinel does not manufacture logs. You need to find a way to inject all of your critical application server or even network devices, all of their critical logs into Sentinel. And I think while we were talking about maybe Microsoft services, Linux and Windows in integrating them to Sentinel, forwarding their logs also into log analytics to integrate them with Sentinel. It is important to mention also that network devices can also we can also get network devices to forward their logs into Sentinel. The only thing, just like you might not be able to integrate it directly, obviously, But through an AMA connector like we saw on Thursday, it's actually possible to get it to forward their log to one of the systems that have a direct connection to Azure. Yeah, and then that system can proceed their log into Sentinel for them. So I just want to push that then because a lot of time people may be thinking that, oh, we've been talking about servers, how about network devices? They also form part of your security architecture, and yes, you can do that. And now for you to forward logs into Sentinel, you must have an appropriate connector. For most of the cloud, you probably have some connectors out of the box for maybe system that do not have connector in Sentinel. That does not have a pre-built connector in Sentinel. It's possible for you also, if it supports a CEF format, for you to use CEF or syslog to actually forward those devices into, those logs into Sentinel. And yeah, this course builds on the understanding of KQL, which we learned prior, and also understanding on how data is connected to Sentinel, which we already covered last week, and also I have paraphrased again today. I'm just going to duplicate this. I think it always makes it easier for me to return. Threat detection with Sentinel analytics. So the essence of collecting is not just for people to collect and to save log if they cannot retrieve it and make meaningful deduction from it. So basically, Microsoft Sentinel Analytics is an intelligent solution, and it can be used to detect potential threats and vulnerabilities that you have in your organization. So if you are a corporate organization and you have different applications, in fact, in a standard organization, each organization will have at a minimum maybe close to, a medium-sized organization will have a minimum of 50 applications that they use in the organization. If you want to go, and also they will have systems, and if you want to go into those systems, it's just not possible for you to coordinate and to fetch information from them if the all of the logs are not consolidated into a particular system where it's just easy for you to search without having to log into every system one by one. So basically you have different Microsoft solutions, and each of these solutions produce some intelligence. Yeah, so they produce some intelligence and you want to monitor them, so it's just not possible. And also because of the sheer volume of data that each of the applications and even your the volume of data that each of the application and even your security solution actually produce, it's also very difficult for you to aggregate everything. So what should you do? So basically, it is possible for you to use Sentinel and then create maybe like a dashboard that quickly give you information. And also you can correlate alerts by, okay, already creating a dashboard or possibly using correlation engine. So the idea of SOC is always for you to quickly detect issues when they come in, and if you are sucked into maybe doing infrastructural issues or maybe some other manual attacks. Basically, it just make things very difficult for the SOC team, and that's the whole essence of Sentinel and maybe some other SIM solution. So basically, so yeah, 1 minute. For ARM templates, I don't think we need anything like that. I'm just going to just keep this. So for if you follow the class, let me just quickly go back to so if you follow the class, we said that the first thing that Sentinel does for you is for you to be able to safely keep log until when you need it, if you want to use it for attack timeline, for instance. Secondly, also, Sentinel can give you almost real-time detection when a data is injected. If there are issues and you have some alerting configured, or maybe some rules, basically, it can do a detection, and also it can be used for investigation and also even remediating cybersecurity threats if you are using it as a SOC. So you can use the Microsoft Sentinel Analytics to set up rules and query to detect issues in your environment. And when I talk about setting up rules and query, most time when you are doing query, it's usually reactive. But when you have analytics rules, those are proactive, sort of. When the logs come in and you notice an issue with that log, then you can always raise alert. But most time when you're doing investigation, query can help you basically. So the Azure Sentinel Analytics provide those functionalities that you can use to implement security for data and resources. And historical data from all of your nodes, like what's it called? I talked about systems earlier, including Windows and servers. And a while ago, I was emphasizing the importance that even the network devices firewall and other non server, or let me just say Microsoft based network devices can also benefit from this. So what Microsoft Sentinel does is actually to analyze data from different sources and then being able to correlate them and also finding anomalies. In cases where maybe one of your security tool already pick up a scenario saying that, oh, maybe for instance, you have multiple people, system being encrypted, or you see a section of your network being impacted by maybe a botnet, for instance, and it's picking it across the different devices. One of the things it will quickly do for you is help you quickly have a view of every endpoint or every node within your network that is impacted or involved in those activity, and being able to narrow it down by just correlating that, okay, this activity, what is happening here relates to what is going on here, and giving you a clear view. And obviously there are many benefits to using analytics rule for security operation. These are some of the common usage: identification of compromised accounts, user behavioral analysis. I always love this user behavioral analysis, and that's just because of the sheer volume of information that it can give you, especially about people, their pattern of work, and also for stopping attack. If you have a user that only logs in from maybe London and only work maybe between 9 and 5, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you just see the user logging in from Korea at 11 p.m. one day. That's, I mean, those data don't jive. So when there are some heuristics to behavior that is known, the user behavioral analysis may kick in and quickly spot an issue for you before it become a national problem. So you can use it for network analysis to locate trends, and which may also indicate potential attack. So in the network domain, you also have, it is not all the time that an attacker is interested in collecting data. It is not all the time that an attacker is trying to extort money. There are times that they are there to just cripple the business, challenge the availability. So basically, if they are doing that, one of the things that they do is probably through DDoS, for instance, where you have maybe denial of service or distributed denial of service, and they can begin to flood the network with maybe data volume that don't make sense. Or maybe you even within your network, you may have things like even a large volume of data leaving your environment going somewhere, which is not normal. So you can see that it can also analyze trend for you, and then be able to um alert you when issues are detected. I think I just spoke about data exfiltration as well. Detection of insider threats, investigation of incidents, and also hunting. Um, so you may not be able to detect some. I think firewall has evolved anyway. Um, but yeah, you may not be able to detect some threat by conventional protection tool like anti-malware or antivirus. Maybe because all of the information relating to them are not available on a particular system, for instance. Or maybe because the intelligence is even okay. For instance, a lot of time the way antivirus always know new viruses that have come to the market is through a signature update. While maybe there are some 0 day, what's it called? There are some 0 day vulnerabilities that some threat actor are leveraging, and you see that some people already started implementing maybe detection for them, and maybe your security vendor released that late, but one of Microsoft's technology already picked that up, or maybe XDR is even aware and has been able to inject that into Sentinel. It just help you to actually pick it. What your one siloed application may not be able to do. Basically, you're able to do it, and you can filter the rules template as well. There are rule templates within the Microsoft. I think while I was showing something last week, I did cover some of the templates where I said you already have rules for each particular connector, and based on those rules, you are actually just able to um turn on certain things without you having the need to without you having the need to basically create everything from the scratch. But that does not mean that if you need one, you cannot create it. So if you come to analytics under if you come to analytics under under configuration, basically, you have the flexibility of creating one, and you have the flexibility of also setting one, basically. And one thing I like about this actually is you have different defense and detection area. If you look at what's it called? What do they call it? I've forgotten. Okay, no, keychain. Sorry. If you look at the keychain, keychain always look at an attack process or an attack pipeline, and basically you must be able to match the stage of the attack for you to be able to stop the attack. So basically, when you have reconnaissance is all about getting information about the target of an attacker, which can be organization. So if you want to create some detection rule, what are some of the detection rule that you can create? You see, for phishing for information, for instance, if you have a spear phishing attachment, or you see a spear phishing link, or you see a spear phishing service, you want to be notified. So basically, you don't want to start off from the beginning. You have more like a template that you can start with, and all of these templates are empowered by Microsoft Intelligence backend. If you are if you have something like what's it called? If you have something like, okay, I'm just going to use privilege escalation, for instance, there are so many ways that an attacker can do privilege escalation, abuse of elevation control, escape to host. This is related to VMs. This is related to VMs, process injection, boot or logon, auto start execution, different things, domain policy modification, or all of those. You may want to create an alerting and detection. A lot of time when an attacker successfully gain entry or access into a perimeter, what they are looking for is for them to actually find their way around until they are able to gain access to the privilege system. And most time that always involve using privilege accounts, basically. So you see credential access, maybe you detect some things on your network that are sniffing the network, or you have an application on a system that is capturing inputs, or you have evidence that your two-factor is being intercepted. So there are uh, so many things that you can actually do to detect, but you need to know exactly what you are trying to implement for you to be able to do that. You have the command and control, where you have maybe someone establishing themselves within your network, and basically they are able to issue commands to one of your system who they happen to be under their influence, and now their botnets, and then for it to be able to do their bidding, or probably leverage that to access and control some of your infrastructure. And that's what most of the advanced APT always do. So basically from here you see the different things that uh, you can select, and also you are able to go to the rule logics and then be able to write the query that does the detection, the exact detection for you. That is the exact detection for you. This is just a quick tip question. Which of the following aren't common use of analytic rules? visualizing data from what's it called? Data from Microsoft. Okay, it's not on this page. So identifying compromised accounts, detecting insider risks, and visualizing data from Microsoft security content connectors. So you want to find additional information that explain the analytic template and the rule that is used in detection of threats. Which section in analytics root page provide that information? Detail pane, header pane, and rules and templates section. So types of analytic rules. There are various types of analytic rules based on the templates available. You can see the one for anomaly detection, you have fusion, you have Microsoft security, you have machine learning, behavior analytics, you have scheduled alerts, which was where I went to earlier. You have near real-time rules, and then you have the threat intelligence that you can also see. And I think I'm just going to leave you to read all of these parts about the different security rules. I think for most of them, we actually discussed them prior. So rather than starting to create what's it called? From rules afresh, basically, you can start from templates. And if you have any rule started from templates and you're looking at the templates, basically one way of knowing that the template is already in use is by the mark of in use label on the template page. So if you want to create what is it called? Rule from analytics rule from rule templates. Basically you have things to fill in or maybe just important information to provide. Obviously, you must give the rule a name, you must provide, and while description may not be mandatory, oftentimes you are not working alone, and other people that are looking at your work should be able to understand what you have done and then also be able to I mean, without coming to you, or probably if you move on to some other thing. So it's always good to provide clear description. So the status always indicate whether the rule is enabled or disabled. You have the Microsoft Security Service that indicates the source of the alerts from one of the Microsoft Security Service, and you have the filter by severity as well. I think we saw that filter by severity also here basically. And what this always do, if you've created a rule and that condition is matched and you get alert notification, it just also show you the urgency to respond to whatever it is that has been picked up. If I create a rule and I delegate it as low, basically if someone is looking at it in XDR, for instance, they can prioritize other high issue alerts first before they come to pick it. But if you designate it as high, normally people will always respond to issues based on their criticality. You are saying it's very critical and should be treated ahead of other ones that have either low or have medium. Have low or have medium. You can create a rule from sorry. So you can create a rule from you can create a rule from scratch, and I think one thing when creating a new rule also by yourself especially is for you to be able to test it before moving on away from it and be sure that it's working. And one way of doing that is by testing with the current data that you have. I think this window should not be strange to some of us. I said it should not be straight to some of us because you have the Microsoft Log Analytics demo data that we used, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, or was it a week ago, basically for us to try our hands on KKL. So we should be able to analyze this. What this analytic rule does is calling the Azure activity table, and it's looking for data where operation name relates to delete a virtual machine where the activity status is accepted, and custom entity equals caller, and extend IP custom entity equals caller IP address. So basically what this is looking for all events that relate with someone deleting VM, and looking for, deleting VM. The VM was deleted. It's asking for the name of who deleted the VM and also their IP address. So basically, if I don't know the extent or the reason why they actually put this there, um, this will definitely has to rely on the fact of maybe access control. Someone already has permission to be able to delete the VM. But when they delete a VM, what do you want to happen? So basically, they are just after they successfully deleted the VM, this is just capturing more of information about the person that deleted the VM, and also their IP address. So, but it is one thing for you to have written the query. It's another thing for you to be sure that that query works, and that's the essence of actually testing it with current data. So this following query says, alert you when an anomaly number of resources is created in Azure activity. Also a lot of time when Azure consumes credits, and indiscriminate or uncontrolled creation of those can quickly impact the organization baseline, bottom line, basically in terms of maybe revenue. And you could even have some IT team being very funny and coming to run their own personal business within the organization resources. So when you have maybe quite a number of activity coming up in terms of creation, yeah, basically that is actually a security threat, because I believe that someone may be, okay, so how does even creating a VM become a security threat? Basically, it can be, if you notice, that's more like an abuse, basically. And we all know how we've run away from actually subscribing to those cloud services on this call because of the cost. And then for enterprise, if you have people coming in to just create resources that they don't need, maybe just to use for personal or for sale, basically, it can quickly balloon the organization's cost. Yep. So you also have some activity you can conduct on the alert. You can do enrichment, basically, which is to further customize the results of your query. I think we spoke about that it's possible for you to extend, just add some additional information by calculating some data and putting it as part of your query. We spoke about a project if you want to focus or only return information that help your course, and also you can use project a way to remove that. You should remember those command from when we spoke about the query. So manage analytic rules basically talks about different things that you can do with analytics rule. You can edit an existing analytic rule. You can enable and disable it. You can duplicate it. Maybe if you want to write something similar, or you need a rule similar to what you have, but you don't want to start from scratch, you can duplicate it and then use the duplicate to create a new one. And make the duplicate a new one, let me say, and you can delete a rule if it is no longer needed. The other thing is automation in Sentinel. A lot of time, and sorry, okay, I can't reopen it. So this is the one area that I personally love. The fact of automation. A lot of time, except where you have and not all organizations, to be honest, are able to afford that, where you have 24/7 monitoring, which is actually what is ideal for a SOC center. Yeah, so which is ideal for a SOC center is to have a 24/7 monitoring. But in cases where you actually still have all of those, you may still have a lot of alerts that you need to deal with. And one of the good thing that you can do for yourself and for your organization is actually to do some automation. So Microsoft Sentinel is being, in addition to being a SIEM, is also a platform for SOAR, and that stands for orchestration, automation, and response. And I think we mentioned it a couple of times also in this course. And the primary process is to automate any recurring or predictable enrichment, response, or remediation of tasks that are responsibility of your security operations center and personnel. So one of the things that it does for you is what is listed here, actually, for you to automate any recurring prediction and enrichment, response remediation, basically, that you typically do if it is repetitive or it's something that you can pick up. So okay, for instance, I'll use two of the example that we saw earlier. We have a detection rule in the previous module, and two of those detection rule, I think one was to notify, I mean, is for them to actually get an alert when someone deletes a VM. And the what was the other one? The other one was when abnormal resources are being created. Now, what would the security center do with those information when they see that someone deleted the VM and they look at the name? The name is a member of that organization. The thing is, does the person have authorization to delete the VM that was deleted? Or perhaps does the person have authorization to create the resources that the person has created? So while those looks harmless, they can actually be a security problem as well in the organization if they do not have the authorization to delete the VM, or probably they do not have authorization to create the resources that they have created. The SOC team may need to validate that with their manager to say that this happened. Basically just confirm that this is fine, which is the job of the SOC team anyway. When they see something that looks suspicious, to investigate it, and if it is a problem, to quickly deal with it. Now, it could be possible that someone is looking at a letter and saw that and then went to meet the manager for the team and say that this happened. Are you aware? Did you give approval? And that process of composting email, of sending it or following up can be tedious. One of the things that they can do is actually automate when this happens. What do we want to do? It could be to send information, get more information about the activity itself. That can be an enrichment. put all of those details in an email and send the email to the manager to respond to. So the manager can respond to it, and rather than giving one of your team member a task to do to be doing a follow-up, you are making the platform, the system do all of those follow-up for you by automating that process while your team continue to focus on the main thing for them. So that can be one good use of a SOA. And yeah, there are many use cases. Okay, not so many. There are some use cases that you can put your sort to and your Sentinel as well. One of them is automation rule that allow users to centrally manage automation of incident handling. Rules also allow you to automate response for multiple analytics rule as well. Set tag, assign people, or close an incident without needing for a playbook, basically. So I mean, you can just use a rule to do what you need to do in terms of an automation, and of course those rules should already come to us as automation. Aside that, it's also possible for us to have what is called a playbook. A playbook is a collection of responses and remediation actions and logics that can be run from Microsoft Sentinel as a routine. So a playbook can help automate and orchestrate your threat response. Um, One of the things that the playbook can do for you, basically, it's a collection of response. When something happens, what do you want to do? So if you create a scenario you've identified a scenario and you already know different things to do. For instance, when something happen, um, what exactly do you want to do? You can have a playbook to implement that. And you use playbook most often when you are dealing with a complex response system where you have to especially where you have to create a response or go to many systems for you to be able to implement a response. Your response may involve getting or signing into many systems to effect a change or to probably be able to respond to something. Let me see a scenario. In a scenario where an
From your calendar, Stanbic IBTC Home Ownership Summit starts on Tuesday, the 3rd of June.
sorry, it's Alexa coming up. So for for instance, let's say you identified, I remember I've been in the middle of a ransomware somewhere. What happened? I think is it that we were in the office? I can't remember what led to the ransomware. We just noticed that I can't how did that happen? I think we just got called in that there's an issue with the Active Directory. Active Directory actually. So and we got into Active Directory, tried to use the system, we couldn't use it. While trying to investigate, we noticed that all of the definition files, the template files of Active Directory, the policy files for people that know, have been encrypted. It was a ransomware attack. So when we saw that it was a ransomware attack, I think got so good. There were three uh, Active Directory that were up. I think the fourth one was already shut down to be used for decommissioning, and that was what actually saved us. Normally, when you make a change to policy file in Active Directory, it synchronizes anything that you have in the sysvol gets synchronized across all of them. So we're not sure whether it was only one that was attacked or maybe all of them were attacked. So while trying to investigate, we started checking security tools to see exactly what was it exactly that happened. We saw one SQL service account that was used. The account was a service account and used on so many DBs as well. And that's one of the reasons why I always advocate a service. I mean, a user account for just a single service. Because if there is a breach, basically they are reusing one single account for many service. If one of those services is compromised, basically you've compromised all of your infrastructure. So we saw that, and then the chase started about, okay, how do we do it? Obviously, the organization didn't have a SOA, at least not at that time. So then we had to share ourselves looking at different logs and looking at different logs and looking at places where the accounts are logged on, and then trying to remove them, for instance. That's a hellish of a job for anyone to do. So basically, if you have maybe a SOA or you have a playbook, if you have an account at the heart of an attack, one of the things that you could have created is basically run a search first. In what places has this account signed on? Maybe within the timeline, or maybe the 3 hours timeline of that account. I want to go into the identity source and first of all disable that account. I want to go into all of the system where that account is currently running, sign it out, and kill any process that they are running. And if you now have one singular account maybe running, in fact, first of all, getting to see the full details of where they are running will take you time if you are running it. If you are away from office or you are not running a 24/7 SOC, how will you even know? So those are the things, and I think I might actually, okay, maybe I'll speak to Ali later, or running a session about what really matters about in SOC. So I think basically that's definitely going to take you a lot of time, right? So that's going to take you a lot of time, and what most organizations always resolve to do, and the best approach actually is to use a SOA in that instance. If you have an account at the heart of if you have an indication that an account is compromised, you should be able to search, and I think that's one of the query that I'll probably always just have ready. Be able to search which places has that account been to, where has it logged on, which process has it run in the last maybe 48 hours, and that can quickly give you scope of maybe places where you should be having some threats, and also be able to quickly go after those sources. And you can see here, playbooks in Microsoft Sentinel are based on workflow built in Azure Logic Apps, a cloud service that help you schedule, automate, orchestrate tasks and workflow across system throughout your enterprise. This means that Playbook can take advantage of all power and customability of Logic app. I recall that was it last week or when we started talking about Sentinel, I did mention that okay, I think myself and Usman were the one talking about maybe the support for Power Automate. I don't think Power Automate is supported, so it looks like it's a still Logic app. And though maybe for someone that I think Logic app, like I mentioned also, Logic app and Power Automate share same kernel, and I think Power Automate is even a what's it called? It's like a version of Logic app, but does not have as many connectors and um as much integration as you would typically have. I mean, as you typically have in Logic apps. So Power Automate doesn't have that. So Logic app has a lot of integrations. You can use it to trigger event from many systems, even on Microsoft, most of the enterprise grade applications. And you can also use it as well to also initiate integration as well. I mean, to orchestrate things, basically, you can use Logic App also to control things or to instruct different systems on what to do. So yes, basically you need Logic App as an add-on for you to be able to turn your Sentinel into working as a saw. You can do rules, but you cannot do playbook without Azure Logic App. Create automation rules. Automation rules are a way of centrally managing the automation of incident handling, allowing you to perform simple automation tasks without using playbook. So if what you need to do is very straightforward, it does not require you creating many steps. Automation rules should be sufficient for you. But in cases where you need to do things that are not simple or probably contains many steps, then you'll probably be looking for playbooks. Automation rule can allow you to just assign an incident to a proper person, tag incidents to classify them, or change the status of incidents and close them. So you can use automation rule to do simple things like that. To create an automation rule, yep. So you can use things like that. So you can also create and manage automation rule from different points within Microsoft Sentinel experience, depending on your particular need and use case. So you can use the automation blade to create a automation rule. So the automation rule can be centrally managed in the automation blade, which replaces a playbook blade. So for people who are familiar or who had previously used Sentinel, they used to have a playbook blade under the automation rule tab, and basically from there you can do your creation. You can also create automation rule from the analytics rule wizard. They can create automations from incident blade. So basically what this is telling you is that you actually have many places where you can go to create automation, which is automation blade, analytics rule wizard, or even within the incident blade. And now for the component of an automation rule must have a trigger, which is what starting it. So automation rules are triggered by the creation of an incident. So when an incident is created, that is when automation rules are fired. You need to have a condition. You may have a complex set of condition that governs when an automation rule should run. And when you think of automation, just always think of it in terms of an action. Okay, so what actions? Actions can be defined to rule when things that you want to define or things that you want to happen when an automation rule actually run. And you can define many action. If you are changing the status of an incident, there may be a task that you want to run. When you change the severity of an incident, there may be a task you may want to run. When you assign an incident to owner, there may be some what is it called? There may be some actions you want to run. When you add a tag to an incident, there may be an action you want to run. So you may want to also define an expiration date for an automation rule if you don't want it to run in perpetuity. So what will happen is when the expiration date when the expiration date time comes, it's basically just disable the rule. And like any system that runs a rule that has rule engine, you must always have a priority. Priority or order. In what order do you want your automation rules to run? So basically, if you have two automation rules that have the same trigger, for instance, which one should run first? So the first automation, if first automation rule change an incident severity from low to medium, the second automation is defined to run only an incident with medium or higher priority. You can see it will not run on that incidence. You have an incidence, you have the first automation rule that converts medium this thing to low, and you have another rule that basically just run when you have a medium incidence or higher priority. That will not run. So if you want your medium or higher priority rules to always run before you lower severity, then obviously the second rule should run first before the first rule. I think we can take 8-minute break, and when we come back, we can continue. Wally? Hello, Wally? Okay. So we can take 8-minute break. I'm just going to put a countdown timer here. Okay. Yeah, I saw your question, Emmanuel, about confusion between playbook and automation rules. Like for simple tasks like changing severity, for simple tasks like disabling or closing out an alert or maybe an incident in on the platform in Sentinel itself, you can use you can use automation rule to do just that. But when you begin to need to create something complex like a workflow, after this has happened, then that happened, and then that happened. Basically, when you start to begin to think about complex things that you want to do, basically you have to turn to playbook to do that. Yes, you basically just use you basically just use the automation rule for simple tasks within Sentinel. But when you have to create something complex, or you have to integrate or interact with external systems, then you have to turn to playbook. I hope that clarifies. Please confirm. Okay, my screen is still being shared. So this basically talks about I think the next point here is about threat response with Microsoft Sentinel playbook. And I think we have a video somewhere here that we can play, and I think that should do most of the talking for me. Okay, I think here it is. So I'm just going to play this video. I think that should be sufficient for this part. So please let me know if you can hear the audio.
Welcome to this interactive lab simulation. To navigate this interactive lab simulation,
can you hear the audio?
Yes. Okay. To navigate this interactive lab simulation, follow the prompts on the screen or use your forward and back arrows. In this lab, you'll complete the tasks listed on your screen.
So I'm dropping this also on the chat for you to go through at your hand. Unfortunately, because of limited data, I'm not able to give us more of Sentinel because I don't have, do hands-on Sentinel other than running the KQLs, because I don't have a expanse of systems to pipe data from. So, but you can rely on the Microsoft Interactive Lab simulation to actually walk through. So I put the link on the chat. So basically you can play
In this
it.
first task, you'll create a Security Operations Center team in Microsoft Teams. In Microsoft Teams, select Join or Create a Team. Next, select Create Team. Create the team from scratch and make it private. Name the team SOC and then select Create. Select Skip. Scroll down to locate the newly created SOC team. Select the ellipsis to the right of the team name and then select Add Channel. Name the channel New Alerts and then select Add. This task is now complete. Click the screen to continue.
Just to explain what happened here, basically, for the SOC team, I think a lot of people that work in enterprise would already know that most teams in fact, most users spend their time on Teams than they spend their time on emails and co. So if your team is using Microsoft Teams for collaboration, for instance, one of those things you can do is probably all of your alerts and all of those information that you get about activities or things that are happening in XDR, Sentinel, for instance. You get them directly on Teams. I believe using a webhook, basically, so that I mean, regardless of where you are, you always have access to it. And also, most out of most time, if you have Teams on your mobile, even if it's outside of your work hour, when an alert comes, you get a notification, and if you are gracious enough to also want to check it as well, you can always see it. But this basically just posts information directly on the channel where you can easily access them.
In this next task, you'll create a logic app that will be used as a playbook in Microsoft Sentinel. Follow the prompts to complete this task. In the browser, navigate to the Azure portal. Next, navigate to Microsoft Sentinel and then select your workspace. Scroll down the left navigation pane to the Content Management section. Select Community. In the right pane, select the Onboard Community Content link. The link opens a new tab in the Edge browser for Microsoft Sentinel GitHub content. Scroll down. Select the Solutions folder. Follow the prompts to navigate to the Post Message Teams folder.
And one thing I also like to manage, to say here, a lot of time as Microsoft maintain certain product documentation and also have done some heavy lifting. One of those documentation is for security. And you currently see Azure Sentinel. You have some solution and you have some playbook. This particular playbook that you have on the screen here, what it does is actually to post info message on Teams. So basically, if you are running or doing anything in Sentinel and you want to put information into, you want to post information or just notify owner, you can see things like send basic email, send email with formatted incident response, relate alerts to incidents based on IP, or notify incident reopening. So a lot of things that you probably struggle to create, you already have a template for them within the GitHub, and you can always use GitHub basically to
In the README box, scroll
to
down
do
to the
that.
second Quick Deployment option, Deploy with Alert Trigger, and select Deploy to Azure.
Just one thing to mention here as well. While you have this GitHub here, basically, that you can use to do the deployments, if you have to do the deployments, basically you must have access to the subscriptions and also permission for you to be able to deploy it.
On the Basics tab, ensure your subscription is selected and then configure the details as shown on your screen. Select Next, Review and Create. Now select Create. This task is now complete. Click the screen to continue. In this next task, you will update the new playbook you created with the proper connection information. Follow the prompts to complete this task. In the browser, navigate to your Azure Sentinel workspace. In the left navigation pane, select the active playbooks. Select the Post Message Teams on Alert playbook. On the Logic app page for the playbook, select the first step, Microsoft Sentinel Alert.
Now, just to help you understand what happened here. We've been talking about what's it called, Logic app. If you look at the information that was created, I'm just going to back a little.
In this next task, you will update the new playbook you created with the proper. This task is now complete. Click the screen to continue.
Now, if you look at the things that were created after the automated deployment from GitHub to Azure, you see that one of them actually has this logic/workflow, and that's already an indication of a Logic app. You also have some web connections, which are just connection details for Azure Sentinel itself, and connection details for Microsoft Teams, for you to be able to post a message there. And they are
in this next task, you will in the browser
Microsoft,
navigate to your Azure
Logic
Sentinel
app.
workspace. In the left navigation, select the active playbook.
Now,
select the Post Message Teams on Alert playbook.
Yeah, now based on what's it called? Based on that automation, the automation created a Sentinel triggered what's it called, Logic app. Now, the only reason why this thing came into Sentinel is because when the what's it called, when the trigger for the Logic app was selected, the trigger was selected as Microsoft Sentinel. And let me quickly just show you that. Sure. It's So you have automation, you have playbook. Currently, I don't have any playbook here, but I can create one. I can create an automation this thing, and I can create a blank playbook. Now I just need to this what's it called is basically for pricing. The information here is for pricing. I'm just going to leave it as consumption. I'll only be billed if I use. That's the meaning of consumption. I can give it as a name. I'm just going to say test CMG, and I always love to put things where I am. Enable log analytics. Do I need it? I can leave it. If you want information about this Logic app to be logged as well, that's the essence of enabling log analytics, but I think I may just not need it. And then you can create. Now I created a Logic app. Basically, if I refresh here, even that Logic app doesn't have anything, but I was able to create a Logic app. So basically, I have to go into Logic app itself to actually finish the job. So if I go to Logic app, sorry, I think I put it in the subscription. That's good.
Do you want to check if you actually created it? Because I'm not sure you clicked on create.
Oh, thank you. So it's created now. Now, if I come into the logic app itself and I go into development, I always love the design viewer. That ensures that you can do it without without necessarily having to write any code. Yeah, I have these, all my logic app shows here, but you can see that there is not initialized. I don't have any trigger because I don't have anything configured, basically, even though I could see what I have created here. Now, this change, if I have to select a trigger and I just need to use Sentinel, and you see that for Sentinel, I can start it from Microsoft Sentinel entity. And if you are not sure, basically run playbook on Microsoft Sentinel. So this can be run as a playbook. That's not what I want to select. I'm just going to Sentinel. You see, I can run it with Sentinel and alert, basically starting it from an alert. And I can, when a response to Microsoft Sentinel alert is triggered, this playbook is triggered by an analytic rule when a new alert is created or by manual triggering. This one will run when an incident is created or when it is triggered by automation rule or basically when it is manually triggered. So I can use any of the trigger depending on what it is exactly that I'm trying to do. And if, for instance, I selected this, it's just asking how I want to connect, because it's actually a system outside of Sentinel. If you want it to be able to connect to your Sentinel space, you need to provide it some connection details. Basically, you can use OAuth. If you use OAuth, it will use the privilege of the user that is currently signed in, which is myself. And it's possible for you to use an application, register an application, give the application access to Sentinel, and then you can provide the client ID secret of the application and tenant. And this means that you can even run what's it called, logic app that are not meant within, I mean, that are not within your tenants, so to say. I think to keep things simple, I'm just going to use OAuth. I'm just going to use OAuth and I'm just going to click on sign in. It may prompt me to log in. I'm just going to log in with this, and you see already it's asking me for entity type name, basically, which is more around triggers, if what happened, basically. So I'm just not going to go into this detail. I just want to save this for now. You want me to still select the trigger. What can I use? Okay, I'm just going to do IP. So this should be triggered based on IP, but if I go to Sentinel and I just refresh, the trigger should, okay, still not initialized. We can give it some time and probably wait. Okay, you can see the trigger is showing already as Microsoft Sentinel. So basically, what you are seeing here, rather than going through the trouble of creating one by one, if it is one of the things that Microsoft have already created a solution for, you can always start from there. You see the time I spent trying to just create the what's it called, to create a run book, which is, I mean, I've not even created the run book. The only thing I created was just a trigger. But with just a click and selecting the resource group, it's possible for you to actually do that from Microsoft GitHub and have everything implemented without you spending so much time.
On the Logic app page for the playbook, select Edit.
So also, because that was generalized, a lot of time if you create anything there, you have to edit it either to give it the connection details that mirror what you have in your environment, or possibly for you to be able to make changes and put what's it called? Yeah, put information about your environment and any fine-tuning that you need to do on the what's it called, on the Logic app that was created. For instance, Microsoft will never know what you have called your own, what you have called your Microsoft Teams channel, if the intent as it is currently is to post all alerts on Microsoft Teams channel. So to do that and to put all those tiny details and refine the workflow itself, you need to edit it. And you can see the trigger here is starting from Microsoft Sentinel alert. You saw earlier when we came to this place and we're looking at the trigger, we saw the, if I delete this for instance, I mean, just to show, we saw the option when we search for Sentinel. We saw the option to use alerts, to use incident, or to use an entity. And if you select an entity, you'll probably be looking at IP address, the DNS domain name, and basic IOC that you can use to trigger maybe an action or a workflow, so to say. But in the case of this test, they're using the Sentinel alert. And just after the Sentinel alert, the next action they have there was just to get information from Sentinel as well. So if I want to add an action, I think they still use Sentinel. And basically you still have different actions that you can do. You see in Sentinel, I can use this automation to add comment to a Sentinel to get alert details. So if I have an incident and I want to get all incident related to the alert, or maybe alert related to the incident, so to say, I can use this action. If you want to get what's it called, if you want to get a, if you just want to be bookmark by ID, maybe an alert ID, you can basically use that. And you also have so many other things that you can use. And like I mentioned, if also you need to do things that are not on Microsoft, maybe you need to do something somewhere else, basically, or you need to work on a file. So basically, you have different things that you can do, and you can see different systems as well, including Amazon, that you can do. And I think for Microsoft also, you can create automation account. And I think where the juice is, for automation accounts, mostly you can create another run book. Is it another run? Yeah, it's called a run book basically. Automation account always works almost similar to Azure Logic app, but automation account is infrastructure controlling. It is not more of a workflow. So basically, you can use automation account to embed maybe any codes on any system that you want to implement, and then you can use a Sentinel to also trigger automation account and orchestrate whatever things that you plan to do. So, but for the context of this, we see that we have the Microsoft Sentinel alert, which just retrieve, there's an alert, it's just getting incident relating to that alert and posting it onto Microsoft, onto Microsoft Teams channel where the security admins are. So currently by default, you saw that when I was creating it myself, it asked me to specify a connection. You don't have a connection here currently, and this will always fail if you try to run it. So I have to select a connection, and then I signed in, and that does it. For the what is it called? What are the information that you want to get? You may want to get specific information about what's it called? The most important thing is the workspace, and then you want to get the system alert ID that actually raised this. So the workspace ID is your what's it called? Is your log analytics ID. The resource group ID, you have that, and this subscription ID. Basically, you can go into those systems to actually find it. In terms of subscription, I can see my subscriptions ID. In terms of my resource group ID, I can, what resource group am I using? Yeah, this one. I can see the subscription ID name. The subscription ID can be the name for the Azure subscription itself. It will always be the subscription details itself. And having done all that, you can, if you need to change connection as well, you need to change connection. Mostly for every trigger actions, most triggers actions in Logic app, we need a connection, more of like the account information, about which account information should they use basically to connect, either to fetch information to or to effect an action. So basically, you can change that to the existing information that you have selected, and provide that basically. And I think lastly, you have to go to connections, add connection also. It should be an account that is able to post to Teams and have access to that particular Teams. And basically, you are supplying information about all of these. You don't need to pick all of these again because they are representative of the alert itself that generated this. Would already have incident attached to it with the incident severity, the incident title, the incident status, incident sentinel ID, and all of this. I think this should not be, well, I'm not sure if what's out the level of people already familiar with maybe things like Power Automate. I think this will quickly make sense to them. And this is also saying that if you are a security analyst and you're working with Sentinel, you may also need to, people working in security operations center don't always need to just understand their domain. They need to also understand the adjacent systems that their infrastructure may need to speak to. And that's one of the way of integrating with them. So here basically we're selecting the team's name, we're selecting the channel's name, and then you can save everything. So after the Logic app is saved, you can continue. And so basically this shows how the what's it called, playbook can be created. And after the creation, obviously it can always be used from within your, it can always be used from within your Sentinel. This is not, yeah, the status, this is currently enabled because I started the creation from here. So you can manually run it depending on the trigger, And if the trigger does not allow you to run it, obviously you can also trigger it from the automation rule. I'm just going to try to run through the rest of the course, basically. So this one tells us how to create a sentinel. Basically, I mean, these are an optional, but it's always good to know how to use a pipeline to do deployment, especially for people who may be interested in creating workbook, I mean playbook, basically, to know how to deploy. Just make use of what Microsoft already created, and then be able to leverage on that so that you don't spend quality time reinventing the wheel. And I think the GitHub address that you can possibly just search for Azure Sentinel GitHub. I think that should give you the same details. And basically, if you scroll down to solutions, you can always see all of those different details. So I won't pretend to say that I'm familiar with everything under here. But a lot of time, if you are interested in any area, you can always read the README to understand what it does and to understand how the deployment will happen, and also to understand maybe the storage or maybe resource requirements within your environment as well. One thing about 1Password, 1Password a lot of time is used in the enterprise to manage secure password sharing. If all of you have an account in a team that you all have password to, you don't want someone in your team copying it to a paper or probably saving it on their system. So you can use 1Password basically to share that. And what this does is to key function of the solution is to retrieve sign-in attempts, item usage, and audit event log from your password business account. If you have a password business account, basically you can log on people who sign in into it to retrieve password, to item usage, people who check out credentials, and also audit the use of those credentials basically. So if you want to be able to fetch all of this information from 1Password and bring it into Sentinel, basically you can look at this. Basically you can look at the 1Password. So for your organizations, if you need to bring in information from any system, I mean, if you need to, sorry, let me be careful. I'm not talking bringing information in terms of data connector. Yeah, it can be data connector sometimes, and sometimes it can also be you implementing a response. But you can always look at this solution area to actually get idea on things to do and how to do them without sweat. Microsoft way is just also one way of doing it. It doesn't necessarily mean that that is also it does not necessarily also mean that that is also the best way. So basically you can always do that. And thanks Ruth for sharing that. So for people who are using Microsoft Firepower and all of those, I think Fire Estima, Microsoft ISC, security engine, if you want to use it for analytic rules. Now, I think something for, what's it called? 1Password that I didn't mention earlier. I just spoke about, what's it called? You see, if you want to do analytic rules, basically you have different rule profile that you can that you can implement. And you also see that for data connectors as well, if you want to do the deployment of data connector into what's it called, you have a data connector. So if you're interested in creating analytics rule, you can do that. If your interest is in data connector for it, if you don't find it out of the box, you might be able to look here and see if you have something that you can leverage on. If it's around a workbook, you have that as well. And I think you have for many systems. So this is a good place for you to always look at. The same thing also for RSA Secure ID. I think I used that once in the past. And you have SOC handbook as well. Yeah. So I think I'll just stop there not to bug you, so you can have a play around it. So basically, this just show you how resources are created, which we actually already checked in what's it called? Which we already checked in the walkthrough, the demo. I mean, the simulation that we watched. We also see Microsoft Sentinel playbook. The playbook is what differentiates the Microsoft Sentinel, whether it's a SIEM or a SOA. So the differentiating factor is that playbook, basically. And what is used for the playbook is the Azure Logic app. I've spoken about the Azure Logic apps and how you have you can use it as both. I mean, you can have different actions, and you can use it to connect to infinite number of systems. And if you don't have one, you can also create one if it supports API as well. I think recently we did a project for a client where I think that's not even related to SOC. It's not related to Operation Center. That's related to identity and access management. And while we're trying to implement user creation from their HR system is one of those HR systems that is not supported out of the box, and we had to use Logic App as the in-between, more like a middleware to connect to the HR system API, fetch information, and then inject it into Entra. So Logic App is that versatile. How to trigger playbook in real life, in real time, sorry, I said in real life. Okay, so you can automate responses to threads on the playbook page. On the page, you can observe all of the playbook that are created from Azure Logic apps, and then the colon trigger can represent what kind of connector are used in the Logic app, and you can use the header bar as displayed in the following diagram to create new playbook. Logic App Designer, I think I just showed Logic App Designer, and in Logic App page in Microsoft Sentinel, you have a trigger, and the trigger is the major control of how your playbook can be triggered. What action would invoke the what action would invoke the playbook to run basically. So some playbook can also be run on demand. So some playbook can be run on demand in a situation where you have a user that is suspected, and you want the user from accessing corporate devices. One thing may be that you want to quarantine the user system, first of all, ensuring that the system itself cannot connect and sync organization data. Secondly, you may want to disable that user. You may want to remove the access across different systems. So in this scenario, you can just create a Logic app without the trigger of saying Sentinel, because it's something that you as the team want to run. you don't have an action to say that this user is who should be deleted or this user should be who should be suspended. You have to supply those details. So in that instance, you have to run it on demand and then fill in the information about the user that you are interested in, basically. So you have to run that on demand. Yeah, so you have you can run what's it called on demand, like that. I think we're going to stop here for today. But also to know that this is not completed. We still have security incident management in Microsoft Sentinel, identify threats with behavioral analytics, and normalization. Okay, we still have quite a lot. So I think I'm just going to encourage you to try to read it ahead of Thursday. And I may not go through them, but I'll probably just create time to respond to questions that anyone has before we go into the last one, and then we call the program a quit.